This is, as usual, or should I say unusual, the Lydia and Spin with Lydia Lunch and Timothy Simardal. Good afternoon, Timothy.
Good afternoon. I'm in my studio right now. It's a different setup, but I had to do some like playing. I'm playing a little bit later, so
Well, I'm
um,
in my bedroom, which is my studio sometimes. So
sure
hallelujah.
is, sure
So
is.
we're having a wonderful day here in Brooklyn today because it's rained a little. It's cool. It's not as humid. It's kind of chilly. I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of like we haven't had this weather here for months. So
Well, it's the exact opposite of what's going on in most of the rest of the
oh
country. And
yes,
as a matter of fact, in this episode 215, Matt Shapiro, his original hometown, unheard of, 115-degree index, Oklahoma City. Right now, this week alone, more than 200-year long record highs, or I should I say, 200 record highs were set on Friday, with heat indexes surpassing 120 degrees in more than a dozen locations.
yeah, it's
Heat
crazy.
index, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, even
Iowa,
Chicago today is like 115.
yes,
Lawrence, Kansas, heat index of 134.
ugh,
Unbelievable.
ugh,
We are
ugh.
so lucky right now.
Yeah, Chicago, as of 25 years ago, started planning for having New Orleans like weather, in the next 100 years kind of deal. So, the people that own these skyscrapers and all that stuff, they're the same people that are
Well, the
also
thing is,
denying.
New Orleans isn't even this hot.
Well, speaking of climate change, did you check out the Republican debate last night by any chance?
Yeah, I wanted to change the planet I lived on. Hello.
So yeah, the subjects that they did not want to talk about, they talk about climate change. They quickly try to avoid just even talking about that.
Every
And
one of
then,
them.
yeah, every single one of them. And they did their best and pretty successfully avoid talking about Trump at all. But they actually didn't even talk about Biden that much. I think Biden was the winner last night. It was pretty weak out there. But that
Now,
guy,
like we could be facing, and of course it's not tomorrow, but mass extinction, climate change, dictators, the die off of many species. What do you expect?
yeah,
Yeah, it's not happening tomorrow.
they'd rather talk about God and abortion rights.
Oh,
That's all they and of course they were. It was just hypocrisy all over the place. Like, oh, I care about people's lives and all this shit. And
I
of
mean,
course,
I'm waiting for a true Satanist in the truest sense of the word to actually, well, they wouldn't run for president, they'd run away from the president. By the way, I do hope he gets lice and bed bugs, the orange ass clown who's checking into Fulton prison as we speak. Oh, jail, excuse me. Oh,
oh, Joe,
there was a great picture of him in an orange jumpsuit as a sad clown. Oh, that'd be so wonderful. Oh, I just
I mean, the hypocrisy is insane. Like they're all up there saying, yeah, the left are all about defund the police, blah blah blah. We have to give more money to the police, and then turn around the next second and go, let's get rid of the FBI, let's get rid of the ATF. It's like, what are you guys even talking about? I mean, really, that piece of shit, Vivid or whatever that guy's name is, full on fascist. He's basically like saying, get rid of the IRS, get rid of the FBI, get rid of the ATF, and I like Russia. And
yeah.
it's like, so my in a time machine in Oakland to some like radical hippie cult. I mean, that's basically what
I
they
mean,
were saying.
when
No,
Nikki
it makes no
Haley and
sense.
Chris Christie make the most sense, well, they did,
No,
which is
the one that made the most sense actually was that North Dakota guy. I don't believe in his
also
politics, but at least he's consistent with his logic. The other ones are just all over the map. It makes no
that's
sense.
true. Now going back to climate, I mean, this is interesting because quite a few years ago, I was just, as a fan of architecture of all types, I was looking into underground housing and I happened upon this site that was called Underground Housing. And I just, was looking around. And then some months later, I got an email from the main guy from Underground Housing. And I'm like, oh, do you monitor your website? And he goes, no, I just thought you're an underground artist and you might want an underground house
What?
someday. Yes, very bizarre. But
What?
anyway, people have been living underground for quite a while, and that might be where we have to go. We should be going down, maybe not up. And in the opal mining town of Coober Pedy in South Australia, 60% of the population lives underground.
Whoa.
Yeah, because it's like 126-degree summers and 36-degree winters. So their dugouts, and they look pretty cool, stay a consistent temperature of 73 degrees. Now, this makes complete sense. Now, homes must be at least like 5 feet below the surface to prevent the roof from collapsing. And well, cave-ins, they do occasionally happen, but actually, yeah, it's you're saving a lot of money there by not having to expend more fossil fuel on heating or cooling.
What about flooding? What about flooding?
Well, not when you're that far underground necessarily. So also, I mean, on Cappadocia, which is not underground, but it is cave dwelling. I mean,
spectacular.
Built as early as there was a lost city they just found in Turkey, also called Derinkuyu, which as early as 2000 BC, 18-story tunnel networks reaching 76 meters. I don't know how much that is, with 15,000 shafts to bring light and ventilation to the labyrinth of like warehouses and homes, could house like 20,000 people. And they look, again, pretty cool for thousands of years. I mean, this is the problem. We shouldn't be going up. You should actually be going down.
So I went to Cappadocia years ago, and I had a private tour guide that knew a lot of these underground housing
tunnels.
I mean, pretty, one of which 26 stories deep, and motherfuckers would during the Crusades, just basically anytime someone came coming through their area with like weapons to kill them, they just kind of hide out there for a while. And
they had good systems of also blocking out entranceways. True.
Oh yeah, no, pretty spectacular Cappadocia. Now,
I mean, again, what is one of my main mantras? Haven't we learned anything from the past? I guess we haven't learned anything from the past because it's the same as it ever was, only worse.
Did I ever send you? There was speaking of underground housing, Sam Oswald, I think, gave it to me about there was a real estate link. You could buy it, $500,000, $500,000, an hour outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. A retired
underground bunker,
nuclear missile silo.
Well, hey, you know what? If everybody would just send us $1, I mean, they're sending Trump millions of dollars for lying. They can send us $1 for telling the truth. Maybe, if everybody sends $1 or $2, we can get our bunker.
Well, I mean, this thing is pretty insane. It's not even a bunker. I mean, it's a full, someone who, they had staff
commune
manning it. It was a multi-story. I mean, there's rooms. I mean, it's basically a house with a giant hole next to all the housing, which is where a ballistic nuclear missile used to be. No longer there, but it looked pretty cool.
Well, I mean, also just to carry on that subject for a minute, I mean, they are doing. There's a lot of recent study into the Earth's absolute. I'm not saying we should dig this far down, but inner core, which is like a planet within a planet, because so far we haven't been able to go that far down. And the inner core actually of the Earth is like a solid metal ball.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it influences the magnetic field, but it supports the planet. I mean, I'm always curious why we haven't collapsed in upon ourselves on the Earth for so much concrete, but the inner core is far from a uniform mass. It's more like it's like a tapestry of various fabrics. So they're finally just getting down in there and trying to establish also the most amount of gold is deep within the Earth core. I mean, we just can't go far enough. So anyway, that's to me all very interesting. So anyway, the team that's analyzing the seismic data, they collected information from 2,455 earthquakes, and that's how they're unveiling the structure and behavior of the Earth's inner core. And it strengthens, of course, as you go deeper toward the center. Well, that makes sense. I mean, if it was like a Cadbury egg, we'd all be
we would. Well, speaking of earthquakes, what about the hurricane in Los Angeles?
Oh, unbelievable.
Pretty exciting. I mean, that hurricane was not much unless you lived in Inland Empire.
Well, it was bad, very, very bad for some regions. The
flooding. Well, yeah, Inland Empire. Yeah,
but the quake at the same time.
I know that's fucking funny.
I mean, you know, that it's bound to happen. I mean, again, you know, Mother Nature's getting pretty pissed off with the men who have been doing her violence. She's getting, well, as I've been saying for decades, more violent. But is she more violent? It's always been violent. Nature is violent. Some of us, our very nature is violent.
Well, speaking of violent, I almost said violet, but I actually.
Why did I just think violence is golden? That's bullshit. I don't know why that just came into. It's a new song I'm writing, I guess. Go ahead.
What about this Lucy Letby, the nurse in the UK that was killed a bunch of babies? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did.
She's injecting air or insulin into these kids.
Well, but, I mean, you know, better birth control and abortion on demand is a better way than having nurses kill living babies.
Well, she had a diary that they found, they claim, out of her apartment, and she wrote, "I killed them on purpose because I'm not good enough."
Well, why didn't she just frickin' take herself out? Hello.
I don't know. The other thing she wrote was, "I am evil."
Well, all right, and
well, yeah,
you had to prove it by how many babies did she murder?
I think it was like 7 or 8, but yeah, you know, maybe more. But I mean, I think they,
you know, I think the prevention of about 1 billion babies without having to kill any of them is a far better solution. But that's just me, as I sit here with my legs spread wide open. But I'm just going to assure you, there's no spermatozoa going inside there.
What about, was it Wenzel's Farm in Wisconsin? They just set the Guinness Book of World Records for having the longest beef jerky stick.
Hey, just because I'm sitting here like that and I explain that, suddenly you get the idea of a beef jerky stick. Timothy, dog, get your mind out from between my legs.
Hey. I know
it's hard.
I don't normally eat beef jerky, but on the road sometimes.
We always eat beef jerky on the road. We would never eat it anywhere else. I mean, we need the protein. We have like, you know, a cheese stick of beef jerky. It's road food. I mean, I hate to admit it, but I just had one recently on my way back from York, PA.
That makes sense. Well, this one,
a venison jerky, actually was delicious.
It was. Okay. I like the jerkies at Buc-ee's in Texas.
I cannot wait to go to Texas. I'm going to be going to every Buc-ee on the planet. I can't wait till they go public. I want to invest. I think it's the best creation for better garbage than before.
They're not Buc-ee's. I don't think it's going to beat the record of this beef jerky stick, which is 314 feet long.
So why not, I ask?
I don't know. And why 314 feet? Like, well, why that number?
By the way, Tim, when we have a beef jerky, we usually share one because even like 3 inches is more than enough, which I've never said before in my life, but I'm just saying it now.
Well, yeah, yes. Enough said with that one.
I guess it depends on what it tastes like. Okay, speaking of what it tastes like. Okay, Ed, do you have any more about the beef jerky?
No.
All right, this is horrifying. Now, you know, we have to. The only place I will go to an Italian restaurant is in Italy. This is fact because it's in Italy and the food is great. Never go to one here. But I certainly wouldn't go to a faux Italian restaurant like the Olive Garden. And this just proves my point.
Oh, no.
Wisconsin man Thomas Howie claims, and he has the proof, he bit into a rat's foot while eating a bowl of minestrone soup. He was at dinner with friends, big spenders, in Warren, Michigan. And he made this very unsettling discovery. While talking to his companions and not looking at the food, he said he felt a sharp object stab his cheek and was left horrified when he spit out the spoonful. The culprit, he said, was a rat claw, and he fired for damages. Now, I mean, a fur-covered claw. That one of the waiters goes, "Oh, that's funny. We don't even serve meat in our minestrone." Well, not a good enough excuse. It's a terrifying rat leg. There's pictures. Thank you, Daily Mail. And so he said he took a bite.
That was at an Olive Garden.
Olive Garden. He took a bite and he felt a stab inside his cheek. It felt like a needle. So he lunged and choked himself almost. And the claw lacerated the inside of his mouth. So he hacked it up and realized into a napkin it was, as aforementioned, and he threw up in the restaurant. on the floor, and he asked to see the manager, and then they just start joking about it. I mean, so anyway, he had to go. He put the the rat foot in the freezer for months as evidence, and left a cut in his mouth. He had to go. He called the cops. He had to be rushed to the emergency room. He had to get a shot for tetanus, and yeah. And anyway, he's now in PTSD. Who wouldn't be? I mean,
what was his name? What was his name?
Thomas Howie, poor guy. He is suing, but only for $75,000. I mean, he said he said that he struggled to sleep and eat in the days after the incident and experienced vomiting, diarrhea, and severe depression.
Oh man,
No
Thomas Huey, his name, Thomas
Howie.
Well, Howie. Well, he should stick with the endless breadsticks next time.
Just don't go there. How about that?
I've never been. I mean, I've never been.
How about no? I've never. How about you make a joke about it? I mean, they should have just gone to the safe right then and there and tried to pay the guy off and go keep this under wraps.
Yes. Any Darden restaurants? I'm trying to think because they own all those Red Lobster and I don't know, Olive Garden and maybe Applebee's. All that shit. I don't know if I've been to. Well, maybe Have I even been to? I don't know if I've been to any of those places.
Look, no, I can't. Look, I'm very picky. Let's face it. I don't go there. I won't even eat a fry.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean Olive Garden. Oh God.
Anyway, there's not really much more I can add to that story.
No. Food. I guess I have this guy Justin Jelitz of Uniontown, Pennsylvania. Got arrested for he's known as the Uniontown Ninja.
Okay.
He goes around town. He must just be a crazy person, but he went to jail. He assaulted a 15-year-old. He went up to him and said,
wait. He went to town and what?
He was walking around town and he assaulted this local 15-year-old, I think pretty badly, because he told him to make him a sandwich.
Wait, on the street? Make me a sandwich?
I don't know. He goes, make me a sandwich. I mean, and the guy's like, what are you talking about? And then he starts pounding on him. You didn't make me a sandwich.
Well, wait, did he want to be turned into a sandwich or he wanted to have a sandwich?
Don't know.
Oh my God.
Well, anyhow, the Uniontown Ninja is now in jail. Uniontown, I looked up where that's like kind of in the middle of nowhere. Uniontown's near Pittsburgh. That's where that is. I don't know.
Well, there was just that massive shootout in Pittsburgh. Look, I love Pittsburgh, but it's, look, so many American cities right now. We are the only thing the Republicans got right last night is this is a country in crisis.
Well, the thing is that they're real assholes because all the major cities, the mayors are Democrats. So they're like, these cities are hell on earth. There's so much violence, blah, blah, blah. By the way, and that North Dakota guy actually did bring this up. Violence is up in rural America too, and the suburbs. Like it's up everywhere. It's so stupid. Yeah. It's like, these cities are so fucking bad. It's like,
and there was only one. There was only one, and it might have been the young upstart who brought up the fact that there is a mental health crisis here. That a part of the mental health crisis, I think, is the isolation in society by, first of all, not only the suburbs and not only the pressure to conform, the pressure to succeed, the pressure of the internet, the endless dangling carrot, which you will never achieve. There's so many problems and so little reinforcement for the individual and these are it's the outliers, it's the outsiders. It's the so-called weirdos, although not the real weirdos, because we're the real weirdos, that go out on these mass killing sprees because they're just so disappointed, frustrated, unsatisfied, lonely, bored, sick, depressed, fed on junk food, abandoned as kids. There's a million frickin' reasons. And that this country, outside of any other, within the industrialized world, has the most violence, mass shooting, domestic violence, rape, et cetera, because we are number frickin' one in all things hideous.
Well, when the
of course, we're number, I don't know what number we are, but we are number 215 of the Lydian spin. That's all I know.
All right. Well, we and there, I'll say one thing is when the English discovered distillation for themselves, of course they did not invent it about 500 years ago in London, like murder basically like quintupled or something. It's just people start going fucking insane. And so I'm starting to wonder, is the internet and just modern media, or people just can't handle it or something? They start killing each other. I don't know what the hell's going on, but
Oh yeah, the thing is, they just need to, and they just need to pass out at the corner bodegas like candy, a better form of ecstasy, MDMA, something that just placates and makes people happier instead of feeding so much misery into the public psyche every turn of the frickin' channel. That's my solution. And you know what? Is there really a final solution? I don't really think so. That's why the individual is still important. And that's why we here at the Lydian Spin, Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, episode 215, and Matt Shapiro. You want to talk about weirdos? We do what we do because you're listening to us. And even if you didn't freaking listen, we'd still be doing it. Hello and goodbye. This is the Lydian Spin with Lydia Lunch, Tim Dahl, and Matt Shapiro, who is really a man about, well, San Francisco, especially having booked clubs for 30 years, having been in about 30 bands, and still going strong. Somebody we run into almost every time we're out in the East Bay. So welcome, Matt.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm honored.
Yes. Well,
I'm dishonored for not having you on the show. Did you just have a huge garage sale for your memorabilia?
I did, because I'm moving to Germany in less than 2 weeks, and I did have a big sale at a bar where I sold a small part of my collection, but a ton of records and CDs and books. And
did that work out well? Did you do pretty well? Good.
I did. I mean, I'm still bringing like 4,000 or 5,000 records over there, and
4 or 5 what?
1,000 records.
4,000 or 5,000. That's expensive. Yeah. So you're doing like a long cargo, like it's going to arrive in 6 months kind of deal.
2 months, but yeah, exactly.
You're going to Leipzig?
I am. Yeah, exactly.
Well, Leipzig that's been hot for a second. It's everyone from Berlin or even Leipzig. Oh, it's not as cheap as it used to be. Well, it doesn't touch San Francisco. That's fucking for sure.
No, totally.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
So why Leipzig? I mean, what's I mean, they have their big goth festival. It's
they do
very interesting town.
My wife lives in Leipzig.
Oh, okay.
Has she always lived there?
She's German, so she's always lived in Germany, but she's been there for like I think 15 years at least. Okay. Maybe longer than that. But we've been together for 10 years and married for like 2 years.
So well, Leipzig's also the home of Bach. So it's a major music geographical point on this planet. And
it really is.
Leibach.
Yeah.
Well, Leibach's from Ljubljana, right?
Libya, exactly.
That's true. They're often in Leipzig. They remind me of Leipzig.
Yeah.
What are you planning on doing there? Are you going to try to open another club? Are you going to do music? What are you going to do?
Yes and yes. I do plan on opening another club. I'd like to. I need to get a better grip on the language first. So I think the first few months I'm just going to take an actual language course and start working in bars and just various bars and helping people put on shows and just get the feel of how things work there. I mean, and then I can prove to them that they're wrong. I can do it better.
Leipzig I always find has a great audience for music. I love playing there. I'm actually playing there, I think on the 25th of September. So maybe you'll be there.
What band are you in right now?
I'm in a million of them. I'll tell you about it later. But yes, okay. But Weasel will be with me. So yes.
Oh, awesome! Hell yeah, it'll be great to see you.
I'll let you know. But Halle is right there as well, and you can do both. Yeah. You can do both towns. So
I'll be anxiously awaiting my next trip to Leipzig under your auspices. I can't wait, my friend.
I can help you out.
I love help. I encourage it at all turns, of course.
And I have 2 guest rooms at my place. There,
amazing.
Yeah.
Were you in bands first, or were you in like the club biz first?
Bands first.
That makes sense because you're probably a kid when you started.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started playing in bands when I was like 21 in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I started
in Oklahoma.
In Oklahoma, yeah, Norman, Oklahoma. My first band was Ancient Chinese Penis. And,
okay.
That must have been very popular just for the name.
Well, I would say we sold more shirts than we did tapes. But we had great shirts. I mean, we had $5 shirts because they were just given to us. The same guy that was like making shirts for Flaming Lips at the time was making shirts for us. And like on his like late hours at work, he'd just stay there and make screen shirts and just drop garbage bags off of shirts for us to find.
Did you guys ever play?
What did you do in Ancient Chinese Penis?
I was playing guitar. Yeah, we were a punk band, like a 4-piece punk band. Playing guitar. So I definitely learned how to make a lot of mistakes on touring and all that stuff. Like there was like 92, I think, our first tour. And like someone gave us a couple of, like we booked, I forget what band it was in Oklahoma. And in exchange, their agent gave us a couple of contacts in California. So we're like, oh, we have contacts to play a show in California. So we decided to get in a van and go and try to book a 2-week tour. And, and so we made a lot of mistakes that way. And then, we fucked up a lot, but we still, of course, once you do it, you can't not do it again. And so,
people don't realize that, all of us were booking tours and playing gigs much before the internet. And it wasn't as easy as it is now, but there were gigs and we did get them. You
did. I mean, and sometimes the bar was not open when you showed up. And then you'd have to find another bar to play, perhaps.
All types of stuff. I mean, did you get the phone number and then send something in the mail to get booked? How did you? Yes.
I mean, for our second tour, like a month-long thing in the U.S., we first went to the library and did the microfiche, Yellow Pages microfiche, and looked up record store numbers in all the cities we wanted to play.
Yeah.
Call the record stores, ask them for the cool club, name the cool clubs in their town.
Cool.
And then called information, got the numbers for those places, called them, left messages, or talked to people, then sent tapes. And then,
that's interesting because I said this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that how I got into a lot of concerts was as a poor teenager going to the local radio station, knocking on the door and go, I need tickets to concerts. And they said, okay. Sometimes you just have to be bold. You got to do it myself sometimes. You just got to do that. Going to the library and looking up the records was genius.
Yeah, a microfiche. And it's funny when people hit me up on email and getting upset that I can't give them a show. It's like, Jesus Christ, all you just send me one email.
Yeah.
Right.
Not crying.
Yeah.
Once you get in a van and drive for 2 days and show up at a bar that's not open and doesn't want you, then you'll know what touring is all about.
Oh, no, totally.
And so then how long did you stay once you're touring as a musician? How long did you stay in Oklahoma?
So I had that band at the same time. I had another band going on called Multiple Choice. It was more of a hardcore thing. And we were all like in university together. And we all like graduated around the same time and kind of all had the same idea getting out of Oklahoma, but not sure what to do. And we had a few friends that moved to San Francisco and we were like, screw it. Let's just have the band move to San Francisco and start touring and really doing stuff. So we're like,
what did you take? What courses were you taking in college?
I graduated actually with a degree in journalism and a minor in communications, I think. And then, not that I used any of that for anything.
I mean, no doubt you could write a book with all your experience in both being in bands and booking them. I mean,
just by the way you found venues to tour, that's kind of a little journalistic. You're doing a little investigation and communication. Yeah, totally.
So you we're going to San Francisco. What year was that? And kart surfing to SF. I know the scene.
It was like 1994, and like, so before I moved out here, like our guitarist already had a place here with his buddy. And so I was like, the plan was we're all going to end up here within a couple of months. And then as soon as we're all here, we would do a 2-month tour. So I booked that 2-month tour while I was still living in Oklahoma. And once we got here, then we all got in the van and left and went for it.
So how often do you still have family in Oklahoma?
Yes, my parents live there. I was just there last week.
Okay,
Actually.
so
Going to see him one last time before the big move.
Yeah, before the big move, I'll come back and see them every year, I'm
so
sure.
you left Oklahoma before the Timothy McVeigh bombing.
A year before, I believe. Yeah.
Were you a suspect?
Yes.
I had to ask.
Yes. Well, he didn't do it alone. I can tell you that.
No. So growing up in
no comment on that. Okay.
So did you like growing up in Oklahoma, or you just like couldn't wait to get out of there?
Couldn't wait to get out. That was our whole thing of like, it just sucks when you walk out your door and just you hear the word faggot yelled at you, at all times.
Oh, like, and why? Because you had long hair. Like, where was that even coming from?
Because that was a convenient phrase for anybody different at the time.
Yeah, exactly. That's
as if that's the worst thing you could be. I mean, I can think of a lot worse things to be, like a Republican.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, I mean, like
by that or yuppie, But yeah, it's just a thing of like, just when there's so much hate around, you just don't want that, and it's like you can do better. And I just always saw that too. Like, there's a few people that stayed there, and I'm like, I don't know, I didn't want to be the big fish in a small pond. I'd rather just go somewhere and experience things and learn things.
And it's amazing because look, anywhere you are, no matter how small or how horrible it is, you found a few people who had the same vision to do what you wanted to do. Weirdos like us we are everywhere.
Exactly, we are. But like, that's the thing is, like, at that time it was hard to know about that they're everywhere. Like, unless you go on tour, or Lydia, I think I told you the story once. Like, I was working in a record store in Oklahoma City, and I had this older guy. Like, I was probably like 19 at the time, and I had this older guy who was probably 33 that I worked with, and it was awesome. He knew all kinds of cool shit, and he made me a video, like a VHS tape with random things, like a live Nina Hagen concert on there. I forget what else, but the main thing that really drew me to it was Fingered.
Whoa.
Well,
whoa.
Now, to a young man, I wonder what that film meant to you. And that was a film I made with Richard Kern.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you my concept, but what did that do to your young psyche?
I loved it. I just thought, wow, this is fucked up. In a good way. The things that I needed, it's like, you've already watched horror movies at that point, obviously. I have. So it was like, you see that, you're like, wow, this is fucked up. And it's so weird and so strange, but it also like opened that door to like weirdness out there.
It's interesting because that film it had such a big divide of haters and lovers, and there was no telling who was who or who was what. But basically, the thing was, we wanted just to a drive-in trailer with no fat, an exploitation film based on some of my real experiences, and consider the most misogynist or the most feminist could never be made now. But then was like the top cinema of transgression according to the Whitney Museum. You never, who knows? You do what you do because you need to do it. I'm glad I opened your eyes.
You did, and all those other like the political concepts of that, like I figured out later on. Instead of like my first interpretation, like, wow, this is weird and cool and fucked up, but like,
not so beautifully though. Also, let's not forget the art involved. Hello,
the art was like, it was great. Me and my friends still quote that movie because it was very impressionable on us. I think it was around the same time.
Did you see
very hardcore, very harsh? It's harsh reality. It was about a harsh reality. It wasn't trying to be shocking or anything. It was actual real experiences. Somebody I'd actually lived with for years.
I'm sure. Yeah, it was very.
Somebody had to do it. I knew I wasn't alone then, and at least I had you.
Yeah, no, that was great. Yeah, it was around that same time. I was like, I got the industrial culture handbook, and all those.
I researched some of our favorite people who Vale. We've had them on. See that there were. Research did do good educations for us between the rock magazines and the internet. Research publications gave us a lot of insight. I have to say, props to that.
Yeah, and that kind of made it like kind of national or worldwide, even because you had access to that. In Oklahoma, even like there was a couple of stores that would sell those books, so you'd be able to find that.
So what did you do when you first got to San Francisco then? Well, you immediately tried to go on you booked a tour before you even got there.
Yeah, like we got here, went on tour for 2 months. We were
Which, by the
multiple.
way, that's a miracle. Because right
Yeah.
now it would be almost impossible to go on tour in the United States for 2 months. I don't. How did we used to do it then?
Well, you wouldn't
Well,
want to.
we were
right
younger.
Yeah. Hello.
Well, but also, you know, all studies are showing that people are moving to the cities where they feel like they're being they can relate to people.
Right.
People have similar interests, and so it's not as spread out and distributed like it used to be. At least I think, or people just didn't know how to leave. Would you say there's more weirdos into the things that you're into? Spread out through the country back then? Do you think there's more of that, or do you think it's less of that?
Yeah, I'll say this about Tulsa when I go back. It's like it's way cooler than when I lived there, and because a lot of people, you know, when I got out there, I mean, when I got out of there, all of us wanted to get the fuck out because you're just like, fuck this place, this redneck place. But you know, and you could afford it, kind of, because like you can find cheap living in big cities at that moment. But after a while, people couldn't. And they couldn't leave there, and they're like, screw this. And they did the good thing, which is impressive, is they stayed and they opened cool bars, you know, continued with their cool bands. And so now there's a lot of great cool bars.
Good to know.
And weirdos.
You know, look, I mean, major cities, I mean, they're, especially New York, so overrated about so many things that I mean, I love to go to any place I haven't been before. And I think that there are a good amount of weirdos anywhere. It's just if they can get the information to find out when you're doing the gig, that's what happens.
Exactly. Getting the information to them, because there's so much information out there now. But yeah, there's a lot of great places.
Speaking of Tulsa and Fingered, did the book Tulsa by Larry Clark? Did that have a similar impact on you?
I never saw that till way later. I didn't know about it.
Okay. Amazing. Larry
Clark. And it was like, I didn't even know about the seedy underbelly of Tulsa till years later. And I was like, oh, there's also that. And there's, I mean, the more I've heard over the years, like, wow, there's weird shit. You know, of course, like any place like that, there's going to be like, a place that's so conservative, there's gonna be a lot of that other side.
There's gonna be rebellion because that's just the nature of
I mean, that book, it's heroin and guns, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically that's the thread that connects all those pictures. And
yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the American underbelly. Just across the board is guns and drugs.
Yeah.
It was then, it is now. Now it's not even the underbelly. Now it's the overbelly.
Right. Yeah, it is. That's true on both of those, which is crazy.
So then, okay, so you're in San Francisco. So how long? So you start working at bars, I assume. That's, you gotta get it. Tours aren't going to pay your rent, even if you're not paying any.
No, I mean, like, I think I had a job for 2 months before we left for tour, like at a deli. I got fired, like called in sick to work and got busted buying beer at the Safeway a couple hours later.
Oh boy.
Bad boy.
But you know, when you're 20, that's what you do. We came back from tour. I got a job at a coffee shop, and you know, we also realized in that first tour, being called multiple choice, that we were pretty wild. You know, like I was running around and I was pouring beer over myself and just kind of very interactive with the crowd. And you know, on those tours back then, it's like you had a lot of cancellations, and you would try to pick up shows, and you'd call a bar, like you're in New Mexico, for instance, Albuquerque. You go, hey, our show got canceled, but we're in town from San Francisco. We're called multiple choice. Can we play? They're like, sure, you can hop on the bill. And if you're called multiple choice, they think nothing of it. And then all of a sudden, you're causing a problem, and it gets beer everywhere, and maybe some nudity. And so we decided we have to change the name after that tour. So we changed the name to Fuckface.
So that'll get you a lot of gigs, right?
Well, I mean, it was that barrier. So if like you called a bar and like, hey, we're Fuckface, can we play tonight? They have as much information as they need to know.
Right.
Like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be playing here.
Yeah.
Or yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah. So it's a filter. It's an immediate filter.
It was. So when we were booking the next tour, it was like it worked way better. Of like, this is what's going on. And, again, like, touring for 2 months, like we were saying, it's like really hard to do, but you're younger, doesn't matter as long as you had like bread and peanut butter and beer, and enough money for gas. Like that was kind of our rule. Like, well, gas first, beer, peanut butter, and bread.
That's what you had to do if you wanted to do what you needed to do. That's just it.
You bring the camping stove with you, and like we slept in the van a lot.
So how that smell the next day?
I'm not talking a nightlife.
Yeah, I mean, and it's like, but so we like a lot of times just pull over somewhere we can park, and maybe you can make some ramen. But yeah, there's so many times like where we had offers to stay at people's houses sometimes, and then they would see us play and go, "Oh, sorry, actually, I have to go."
Okay. And then what about when they say no, please come in? Then what are you walking into at that point?
We, for the most part, we got pretty lucky.
Okay.
On that, it was like there wasn't too much craziness of like weirdness or danger. It was like because we're nice enough.
You were the danger. You were the danger.
You're right. Possibly, yeah.
So were you for those first few bands? Was it the same number? Was it the same band members, just under different names, or
Multiple Choice and Fuckface were the same, except for we went through a lot of drummers, and those switched up. But there was I was singing. We had the same guitarist John and same bass player Robert. Like we were the same thing throughout. And then we toured a lot.
So then you just kept going back to San Francisco, getting shitty low wage jobs, and until you started bartending, I guess.
Well, you mean like you go on tour and you play with all these other bands that want to come to San Francisco, so they hit you up going, "Hey, we want to play San Francisco." So out of necessity, we're like, "Okay, cool, I'll try to get you a show." And so that's how I got into booking. We're like trying to help these guys out with shows, like other bands coming through. And like started booking shows that way, and because like we were having a hard enough time getting a show here. Like we did 2-month tours before we could even get a show after dark here in San Francisco.
Weird.
We had to play we had to play like these matinees and weird happy hours.
What was that about?
Just because we weren't cool. No one knew who we were. We were not part of the cool scene.
What was cool? What was considered cool at that time in San Francisco?
What were those bands like? God, I want to say like the Muses. Like there's a lot of bands that like were punk, but they weren't punk. It's like they would call themselves punk. Then you hear them, you're like it's kind of like alt rock, like hard alt rock.
Right, but they have like mall punk clothes on or something like that.
No, I mean it was just dudes that were just kind of like maybe what do you call it? like not like the guys. They wear like stuff that looked like they're working in the garage.
Okay.
That style
jumpsuits
like,
and
you guys don't know how to fix anything, but nor do I, but I don't dress like I do. So that style, and so that was considered punk, and they were the hip thing.
Start booking bands and then you take over a club.
Yeah, kind of slowly. That's kind of what happened. I would just like start doing things, and I was like, okay, I have more shows I want to do. Like I can have the calendar here, I can start doing it. And like so I was doing that, and then there was a gay bar on Polk Street called Chemo's, and they did drag shows on the weekends, and I guess they stopped. The drag shows weren't doing as well as they used to, and so a friend of mine started doing shows there at the punk show once a week, and he was like, to make it fun and weird, it was like the bands had to dress in drag, and I was cross-dressing at that time, and so he was like,
and daily life,
24/7, just like wearing dresses and makeup.
How'd that feel?
At the time, it felt right. I mean, there was drugs involved too, but it felt right for me.
Felt like you.
It felt like me, and I had a better body back then. So your 20s, so it's my friend was doing shows and he was like, "Oh, wow, I already have bands telling them to wear drag," and he's like, "You should be working this." I'm like, "Yeah, I should. You want me to do doors?" Like, "No, do sound." Like, I don't really do sound, but I was like, "Well," he's like, "It's a 4-channel PA." And like, I mean, I've done, at the rehearsal spaces, I would do it. That's easy enough. So like, that's how I got into doing sound. And then so I was doing sound for all his shows. And then the bar was like, "Hey, we want you to start booking shows here too." And I was like,
double duty.
I was like, "Sure, I can do some." And then they were like, "Well, we want you to be the full-time booker." And like, during the
promotion
week,
after promotion.
Yeah, like, well, I don't know if we might call it promotion for the amount of money I was getting paid.
You're competent. You're competent, and they trusted you, basically.
Yes, they wanted me to do something that would make the bar money, and it was a really dysfunctional place. And I was like,
what year was that Chemos was happening?
It must have been around late '90s, like '99, early 2000s, and like so. Because I had the run of that calendar and I was booking stuff, and it was it was cool because the thing that appealed to me was I got to book whatever the fuck I wanted.
Right.
So I was like, it could be, like what becomes this is what my genre is dark, weird, extreme, and wrong. And so they didn't care as long as people showed up, or as long as a few people showed up.
And were there enough bands to kind of keep that calendar full? That fit? There
were. I mean, there was a lot of weirdness happening. Like, this is how I met Paul, because Paul's band played there, like Total Shutdown.
Yep.
And it was like, wow. And like he hit me up, I think, for a show. I was like, okay, doing sound and book the show. And it was like, I mean, he put the bands together for the bill. Like, this is amazing. And he realized, I think we just must have had a conversation about like, yes, I'm open to this all the time. And yeah, because I think the first time it was
Paul
him.
of Murder.
Yeah, Paul of Murder, Paul Costuros.
Yes.
I think the first time I saw it,
a good friend of us, a musician, and another booking agent.
Death Sentence Panda. He's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so that's how I knew him. Like, his band played with Teen Cthulhu, and it blew my mind that day. It was one of those days where you're like, you see a band, you're like, wow. And it's like, I went home to my girlfriend that night going, I just saw Teen Cthulhu, and had no idea I was going to be spending my, years later with some of those guys in that band. But, those things, and but Paul was like, oh shit, I have lots of shows I can throw here.
Right.
Like, just do, so we worked together on a lot of stuff. It was like, great. Like, there was so much weird music happening in the Bay Area, and also bands touring through that needed a venue to play. And because we had a venue that no one cared. I mean, as far as the owner was never there.
What were some of your favorite bands that you booked during that period?
God, Lightning Bolt played there. Fucking amazing. God, that whole scene, Friends Forever. That was a crazy scene. I was, doing. Frank Moore would play there a couple of times a year. I don't know if you know about him. He was a weird noise troupe. He had muscular dystrophy, and he was very, very disabled, and and he had a weird cult going on here, and with this weird love orgy cult, and he had a blind violinist playing his wife. That I don't know what her problem was. Yeah, there was a weird thing to play, but it was so fucking awesome to watch it. I remember calling them to book shows every few months. I'm like, oh, it's time for Frank Moore again. So I'd call the number, and I'd be like, hey, and I'd talk to the wife. I'm like, hey, it's Matt from Chemo's. I'm wondering when you guys want to play again. And she's like, hey, Frank, it's Matt from Chemo's. And he'd be like, hey, in the background. Frank says hi. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I booked all kinds of weirdness, and it was fun. I like to put bands together with different genres, a lot of noise, and put them with metal, put them with punk. And so it was a local band called Monitors. I think they only lasted a couple more years. They wanted to break up, but I loved them so much. I just kept offering them shows. And
you kept them together.
I did. They're like, God damn it, Matt wants us to play again. All right.
That's funny. Well, I mean, Lutenbachers had moved from Chicago to the Bay Area at that time.
So that was before. So I did a Lutenbacher show at Covered Wagon. I think that was the first one I did. Yeah, that was the first time I met Weasel.
And then, but Burmese, how long have they been around? They've been around.
Oh, yeah, so Burmese was playing, fuck, Burmese. I fucking love Burmese. And, so they moved here from Iowa.
I didn't know that. I didn't know Burmese was, okay.
Yeah, so they were a 3-piece, and Yeah, they were playing a
Describe
lot.
Burmese for those that have never heard or seen.
Full on assault. I mean, Jesus, like that was like one of the my favorite things actually. Like, I mean, they were just a full on, audio assault. I mean, it was loud. Like, it just kept getting louder and louder. Like, it was a 3-piece. Then it became like what, 5?
Well, yeah, they had two drummers. I mean, there's been a lot of permutations of that band I've seen.
Yeah, they started a 3-piece. Like at one point, John Dwyer was their drummer. Okay. And then then they added a second drummer, and then
Weasel was the drummer as one of 2 for a while.
Right.
Was Jay also? Was it Jay one of their
Jay
drummers?
joined later on.
Okay. And they had a female singer who was really vicious.
Oh, Tissue, yeah. Yeah, they had a Tissue. Like, yeah, that was
Tissue. I forgot about
that. That was Mike's girlfriend at the time. Yeah, because Mark Schaefer was in the band originally, who's now Schaefer the Dark Lord, as a rapper. But yeah, there was audio assault, but then they were also a visual assault for a while. They had these fucking crazy lights that would shine at the audience.
Okay.
And it was like, I remember like the first time they did that, one of my friends who was like really good friends with them, like she was like, "Oh yeah," she put her sunglasses on right before they went on. I'm like, "Why are you doing that?" She's like, "Well, you'll see."
You'll see. That's funny.
So Matt, you're making a big move in a few weeks. Do you have a system for packing your stuff?
No.
Well, you should.
Thank you for the advice.
Well, I've moved so many times. I'm a big mover. I'm a nomader. I move a lot. But, one suggestion, it might be too late for you, is it's very good to just take a photo of what's in a box and note what box it's in, especially if it's books or records.
Yeah, marking the boxes is important because also not everything's going to fit into my flat in Leipzig. I'm going to get a storage unit. And so I need to mark some of the boxes that go to storage because the movers are actually going to move everything up into my 4th floor apartment in Leipzig.
And that's European 4th floor, which is the American 5th floor.
Right, yeah.
And I guess there's no pulley system outside for all those boxes. Not.
I'm paying for this company, so I'm gonna get. And they also unpack and take the boxes with them.
Wow. Do you have German citizenship because you're married?
No, I'm sort of getting close to having some kind of residential, being a resident, because I'm married. I just passed the German proficiency test. I need to submit that, so I'll be legal to work once I submit that. And I have an address. I have a tax number.
Guile.
Yeah, I'm close.
So I mean, so Leipzig. I mean, that's a fun time. I always love playing there. So if I was going to live in Germany, that would be one of the ones I would consider. Actually,
I mean, Connovitz is a great neighborhood. Like the neighborhood I live in, it's very, anti-fascist and super cool. Like it's almost like a village. It's really nice, in Leipzig itself, though, but it's like because
when does that goth festival usually happen? I mean, I've been at it a few times. Goth,
late May, early June.
Yeah.
Wave Gothic Treffen, like late May, early June. Yeah, you should be on that, Lydia.
I've been on it a few times. They have stitch me on.
When we saw Sabine in Spain, she said she's wanting to do that for us, but we'll see.
Oh, cool.
I've been there with the Nubian Lights. I've been there, I think, solo spoken word. I've been there with a few different things. Always happy to go there. Yeah,
I do want to add one thing about Burmese that was just kind of funny was so fast forward a few years later when I was like booking Elbo Room before I owned it, we had a decibel meter at the sound desk, and I was doing sound for them. And like, I didn't really use decibel meter a lot, but every once in a while I would just check it out to see
what's going on.
Yeah. And they hit 126.
Well, that's arena decibel.
That's loud as fuck. And I remember like telling Mikey, from Burmese, I'm like, dude, you guys hit 126. She's like, is that loud? I'm like, mm-hmm. I mean, that's Motorhead loud.
That's extremely
Is it loud to the deaf man in the band that's exceeding all sound limits?
Yeah.
How's your hearing, Matt, after being in clubs for like 30 or more years?
Yeah, it is what it is. I've never worn earplugs. I mean, I think I've done it 3 times ever in my life. You know,
Do you have any tinnitus?
yeah, you just don't notice it because everything's loud in the city. I noticed it in Egypt. Like I went to the desert and visited some friends. We're like walking the desert, and like that's when I'm like, oh, I have tinnitus because like when there's no sound around.
Right.
Otherwise,
Paul wanted me to ask you.
Okay.
Your Wheel of Fortune story for.
Wheel of Failure, Nigel Peppercock.
Oh yes.
Okay, yeah.
Please explain.
Okay, start at the beginning. This is all too mysterious. Let's hear it.
Okay, so I was in a band called Nigel Peppercock. So that band started like it was like the guitarist from Dystopia started that band, and he started Medication Time. Medication Time broke up, and he started Nigel Peppercock, and he was like, I want you to play keyboards in the band. I'm like, great. So we were just a weird bunch of people. Like they were from different punk bands, and Mouse from Dystopia, his idea was just like, let's just piss people off. Let's play good music. I'm just dumbing it down.
Okay.
Like, let's play great music, but make people upset because of where we are, who we are, and they're not going to expect this. So we wrote good songs, but then we would have a theme. We would have costumes for every show we'd play. Like we'd be because there were 6 of us, so easy would be the village people, and so we would do that. But locally, of course, you'd have to have a different theme every time. And if you're going on tour, you can repeat them, which we did. But yeah, there was one tour, like we were doing 3 or 4 shows up northwest in the Northwest, and we came up with the Wheel of Failure. So the Wheel of Fortune kind of like he built the thing you spin.
Yep.
And we were all dressed like, so our singer was like, the game show host. One of our guitarists was like Vanna White.
How'd they get that roll away from you?
What?
How'd they get the Vanna White roll away from you?
Because that time, I I lost a bet, let's say, and I was Carrot Top for those few days. I was celebrity contestant, Carrot Top.
Carrot Top.
You should have called yourself Carrot Bottom. But
that came out of a thing. Like our tour before, we were playing in Austin, and we were dressed as like hippies, and someone heckled us in the audience, and I just wasn't having it. I mean, and I was just like, "Fuck you!" Again, we're just like hippies playing this music, and I was like, someone said something like, "What the fuck? What the fuck did you fucking say? You want to come up here and fucking sit in my motherfucking face? You think we're a fucking comedy act? You think we're fucking Bill Cosby or Carrot Top up here?" He's like, "Come up here, man. Come up." Just I went off as a joke, but just to play on, Anyway, so I used Carrot Top, and they're like, "Oh, for this next tour, you're Carrot Top for a few days." And I was like, "Well, build me a fake phone booth," because that's when that 1-800 ATT commercial was happening with Carrot Top.
Well, I don't remember that, but I'm sure it did happen.
It was like, it was like a really stupid like commercial, but like they were like, "You're gonna be Carrot Top, and we're gonna build you a phone booth, and like in the middle of the show, we're gonna turn the Wheel of Failure around, and it's gonna be a phone booth." I'm like, if you do that, I'll be Carrot Top for a few days.
Well, if I never hear the word Carrot Top or see Carrot Top ever again, and
oh god,
I've been envisioning you as Carrot. That might be an improvement, actually.
I spray painted my hair orange. Yeah, it was just I will. Yeah,
what you won't do for art, Matt.
Exactly. So the Wheel of Failure was great. We'd place a couple songs, and we'd have someone from the audience spin the wheel, and they could win prizes.
Okay.
And it was like funny for us, dumb for you. Like no one wins here. So we had a couple.
What was listed on the Wheel of Failure, or what were the numbers, the wins? What?
Yeah, grab bag, gift certificate, trade clothes,
big clothes.
Sleep with the band.
There was just a few things that looked really appealing, but there was a few things that were like awful. And our singer would get someone up on the stage, and they'd spin the wheel, and he'd stop it on whatever he felt like doing that night. So like there was one that was like trade clothes, and like some guy had to like trade clothes with our singer who was wearing this fucking sweaty leather pants.
Oh God.
Disgusting. But the best one was our singer was also an asshole. I mean, we were all assholes, but our singer especially was. Like one lady spun and landed on grab bag, and grab bag was not a used condom, but it's a paper bag with a condom with lube on it. And you put your hand in there, you pull that out, you're like, oh fuck. And she was not happy about that, and she just pushed him as hard as she could, and he landed in the drum set. And we're all just laughing.
Cock by a chick on stage. Yes. There you go, Nigel Peppercock, or whatever you called at that point. You want some peppercock? Here you go.
Yeah. So yeah,
you could have maced his dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, God.
Could have, and I would have been okay with it. It was a huge success. The best part was, well, two things happened that night, which I'm surprised with. A lady did try to go back with me to another location as dressed like Carrot Top, which I'm like, how did that happen? No,
did Carrot Top ever try to pick you up as Carrot Top?
Right. Oh God.
Oh, that would be scary.
No.
Wait, so a lady tried to go back with you when you were dressed as Carrot Top, and
went back to the house we were staying at, which I was hammered and not sure like how that's going to work out. I mean, I don't even know where we're going. She's got in the van with us, and there was a lot of drugs in the van, like because like, oh yeah, we had too much drugs.
Too much drugs.
Yeah, it's like too much. Like we had some already from the night before, and then the guy that was helping out with the show gave us some.
What are we talking? Yeah, speed, LSD, cocaine. Yep.
And so we were doing merch out of the van. So anytime anyone bought anything, we were like, "Want a free line of cocaine with that?" And so we're just
whoa. Well, that'll get the girls back to your room.
Yeah, she didn't even participate in that. I don't even know what happened with that.
Well, that's what happens when you do too many drugs. You just don't know what happened.
You don't know.
He could have Carrot Topped you. You could have been Carrot Bottom that night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the thing, that venue we played that night, like they had a website that was like a blog of like reviewing all the shows. So a few days later, they posted a review of our show, and they were not happy. There was like the worst band ever. They didn't even play any songs. They were just talking a bunch. Like they were so mad about it.
Ew, that's so uptight. I don't understand.
They're very. I was like, yeah.
The people just don't understand theatrics.
Exactly.
Have they never seen the Tubes?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
and Tubes are Bay Area too.
Exactly.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
So, what was the first instrument you picked up, Matt? As a bored child in Oklahoma, what'd you pick up?
I was forced to take piano lessons as 5 or 6 year old.
Forced.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
Mom was like, "Oh, you have to take piano lessons," which I did. Like, I wasn't really stoked about it then, but really glad for it now. I mean, like my limited knowledge of music theory came from that, and then guitar and banjo. I thought I wanted to do the banjo, and I took lessons.
I'm down to hear a good banjo solo any day of the week.
Yeah,
not that many good ones out there.
There's not. Unfortunately, I was also not very proficient at banjo, so I switched to guitar.
Do you own a banjo now?
I don't. Like I
think it's a good thing you don't.
Yeah, it is.
Stick to what you know.
Yeah, unless Carolina Rainbow is going to do a reunion.
Oh, yeah. How is Grux doing?
I have no idea.
So Matt, in your 30 years of booking bands, who was the absolute worst assholes? Did anybody really piss you off, or were you just so tolerant because you were, after all, Carrot Bottom?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not a bottom, but you keep pushing that.
No pun intended.
Well, if I pushed you over the bathtub, you might become one. That's all I'm saying.
Oh boy, we're going in that.
I never viewed you as a bottom, but then again, I didn't go that far down the road yet.
Yeah, right. The worst. I mean,
just like crappy attitude, just like, because look, what's great about you toured, so you know what to do when people are
Right.
on tour, when you're booking a club. There's a big difference.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like everyone was pretty respectful. Like my thing when I was like, with chemo was like two bands would break mic stands all the fucking time because we had cheap mic stands, and it would piss me off because I would have to go to the store the next day and buy them. It wasn't about the money. It was just like, so it's like fuck. Burmese and Total Shutdown were both really bad about that, but they were so respectful. They would show up the next day with replacement mic stands. So this is I'm showing the good side first.
That's my no, it's because there are good stories.
Those are great people, So that's why I love both those bands so much. I would say one of the worst was Blutengel from Germany. Blutengel, like Blood Angel. Okay. Industrial band from Germany. I booked at Elbo Room, and like they show up, and again, like it's pretty much industrial karaoke. It's like singer, then they have like instruments that really aren't plugged in, but they have their sound engineer that shows up with them, and like he sets up his thing in the middle to read the room while he's playing a CD, and he was like, "Your system is out of phase."
Oh boy!
Like, okay, I don't think it is. Our head of sound just fixed everything the other day. And he's like, "It's out of phase." And again, we didn't sell many tickets for this thing. I was going to lose money on the show regardless. So I was hoping they would. He was getting mad when we cannot perform here like this. What are you going to do about it? And then our head of sound guy was sitting there, and he was like, "Fuck these guys. I'm going to walk." I'm like, "Don't walk, please. Hang out here for a moment. Let's see how this plays out." I would love them to walk so I don't lose any money. And then it's like, and like, yeah, the sound guy was such a dick. And like the agent was on tour with them. I'm like, I don't know. What do you guys want to do? We have a great sound system. And they're just such assholes. And then the other thing that they had was they're like, okay, we're plugged in, we'll play the show. And there's two ladies with them, and they're like, oh yeah, where are their flagpoles? And I'm like,
excuse me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I do not recall anyone requesting flagpoles. Like, well, they need something for their flags.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, but my mind goes in a very dirty direction when I hear that two gals are there to be a flagpole. I'm like, where are you going to stick it?
Exactly. And I was like, I do not know. I just went downstairs, found a mop and a broom. I'm like, these work? That's all I got.
Do with them what you will.
Yeah. And then they went on. It was like, again, it was just karaoke over like recorded tracks, and these two ladies with, broom and a mop and a flag. And meanwhile, our system's out of phase. They find out the night before they were in Mexico City playing on a 4-channel PA. And it's like, why are you giving me this grief?
Yeah.
Look, everybody's had experiences with lousy sound guys, bad clubs, but the main thing is you just got to find a way to deal with people and do the show the best that you can, and try to get everybody on the same page and not be a freaking dick.
Exactly. And that's my thing, is always, it can work. We can make this work. I mean, there's been so many times with so much stress, like, oh, fuck, the video projector is not working. It'll work. And it's like, even when like I have someone yelling at me about it, I'm like, just give me a minute. I will make this happen. Don't worry. I have another good one. If that's all right.
Give it up. Let's hear it.
Because like Sun is one of my favorite bands. Like I really love Greg.
Oh, Sun?
Yeah. I love Greg and Steven. Like they're my buddies. Like I don't know if I should be saying this story. Man, fuck it. Like I've done a few.
I won't hear the podcast.
I did Sun's first show in San Francisco at a sports bar. Like,
at a sports bar. Oh,
how loud was that?
How many piece were they at that time? Were they 2, 3 piece? 2, 3 piece, 3 piece?
Yeah. So, okay. So I'll backtrack for a quick second. In the late 90s, my friend John Cobbett he decided he's going to do a weekly metal night in like 1998, starting that. Right. And it was like when metal was a bad word. He's like, I'm going to do a weekly metal night at a club. And I was like, that's crazy, but that's awesome. And it actually went really well. Like a lot of bands formed to be like do this. Like they were like, oh, we like metal, but no one. Wow, we didn't know there was a place you could play, and so it built, and it built pretty well. And like we were like some of the first times black metal bands came over to the States would play this little place, Covered Wagon Saloon. Like Mayhem's first time was at Covered Wagon Saloon. Like, and again, that show in particular, I remember like I was helping him out a little bit at the time before I took over for him. They requested, I think it was Cowheads on stage. And they're playing a place that holds like 150 people, 200 people. And so he had to go to a butcher shop and get these Cowheads, or pigs. He put them on these sticks they wanted on mic stands. And
dripping blood.
Anyways, Mayhem was like so dark that like then people started throwing things around, started throwing those things around.
And the heads around.
And one of them, yes, and one of them hit one of the members, and I just watched that guy go, hey! Like just flinch, like girl in a good way. But yeah, it was really funny. It was like, yeah, you're not that tough.
Well, I mean, anyway, a cowhead will fuck up anyone. That thing's huge.
He will fuck you. I mean, but it wasn't like the thing of it getting hit.
He was just squeamish about it. Yeah, it wasn't exactly. The blow. It was the possible blood stain.
Yeah. So that was really fucking funny. So anyway, like Lucifer's Hammer was the name of the night, and it was taking off pretty good. So he handed it over to me a couple of years later. He's like, I can't do this. So I was doing it, and I was doing it with my friend Joanne, and then we lost that venue, and so we ended up like finding a sports bar that would let us do whatever we wanted every Tuesday, like right by the baseball stadium. They're like, here's the deal. Tuesday, pretty much like they would hand us the keys. And like you do what you want on Tuesdays, you staff it, you bartend it, you do sound. We just want to have one of our guys check IDs for our safety. Like, cool. So we were doing metal shows, crazy metal shows at the sports bar, including Sun, like Abigail from Japan, all kinds of things. Anyway, so that's how I met Sun. So I've been friends with them for years and like good buddies. So a few years ago, I was doing a show for them in Oakland at the Metro. And, they're one of those bands that they have a tour manager, Pete, who I forget the band. He's in Goat Snake, but he's been in legendary bands. Pete he does his job as a tour manager, but he fucking yells at you all day long. And because
he yells at you all day long, what?
Yeah. Yeah, but because I know him, I'm like, I let him do it, kind of thing. Like, I know how this will end, and it doesn't matter how he says it. I know what I'm doing, So it's like, yeah, I'll do your thing. That's your job. Whatever you think. Also because Greg and Steven need that guy, because otherwise, still right now, we'd still be making jokes about Guns N' Roses or something, years later at that same venue with the show never happening. So you need a guy going, hey.
Matt, yeah. You book a show for me, I will whisper at you all day long.
Oh, hell yes. All right. Good.
Because I get paid to yell at people. I don't do it in my free time.
But so that guy was yelling at me. It was fine. Like, I know what to expect. I've worked with him. We got everything sorted. Their sound guy that was on tour with them, a guy I've never met, I think he was trying to like, oh, well, Pete is acting like that. I will act like this too. Oh. And he just started yelling at me. I was like,
it's infectious.
Yeah. And he was like yelling at me. I'm like, well, you can't really do this to me. And I was like, the gear got delivered, but he's like, it's not set up on stage. I'm like, I know it's not. How do you want it? He's like, well, we sent you, the whole stage plot. I'm like, you did? But okay, I don't have it on my phone right now. I can look it up, or you can just tell me how you want things.
Hello, right? Yeah.
I had to rent $7,500 worth of fucking gear for them. So I was like, it's here. It's not on stage. How do you want it? And it turns out they wanted it differently than a stage plot. But we got it there. Me and people from the venue got it all up there. No problem. No stress. It was easy. Everything was fine all day long, and like it just
after the yelling ended.
And it's like, oh yeah, the Pete was like yelling at me like backstage, like they had a huge hospitality writer
for two guys.
Well,
and the sound guy and the tour manager.
It was 4 people in the band. They had a synth player and Attila from Mayhem singing. And again, I like all 4 of those people. a lot. I mean, like they're my buddies. But Pete was backstage looking at the huge hospitality thing, and he's like, "I see the hummus. Where's the fucking pita?" And I was like, "Well, you didn't ask for pita." He's like, "Well, how the fuck are we supposed to eat hummus?" I'm like, "I don't know. With the chips that you asked for?" Like, okay. And then he was like, and I forget what beer Steven wanted. He's like, "Well, Steven wants like a Stella." I'm like, "Well, you didn't ask for Stella. Here's the beers." He's like, "Well, Steven wants Stella. Like, do they have it here at the venue?" I'm like, "I don't know." And he's like,
And
"Well,
on it went.
I'm like, "I don't know." Like, and then he was like, "Where's the coffee?" I'm like, "Okay, you did ask for coffee." Coffee run. Me and my assistant, I hired an assistant for the day, knowing. Went on a coffee run, got them exactly what they wanted, and Pete's like, "Thank you." And then again, like the sound guy's like, "What the hell's happening here?" Like, I mean, everything's fine. We're getting, it's all set up. It's up to you now. And he was like looking at me, like, are you not stressed? Like, oh, and then they had the smoke machines. He's like, the lighting guy will not run the fog machines. And I had to rent 3 very specific fog machines.
God.
And like I had to have friends like run all over town with me to pick these things up. And
you still like these guys.
I mean, so, but because like I like Sun a lot, and I want that show to go awesome, and I know it's going to go awesome. And so, like, that's what they need. That's what they want. So it's like cool. He's like, the sound guy or the lighting guy is not going to do the fog machines. I'm like, okay. He's like, well, who's going to run them? I'm like, I don't know. I'll find someone, or maybe me. I don't know. It'll happen. And he was just like, just kept yelling, and like it was a good telltale sign was the band and crew, except for the sound guy, all went to dinner without him.
Yes.
I was back in the hospitality room with him, and he was just very awkwardly looking at me. I'm like, yeah, you want to keep yelling at me? And he came at me and started yelling, like, are you fucking worried at all? I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. And he was like, I think I've done this before. And he was like, getting mad. Just like loving watching him.
Well, and he probably did that every fucking day he was on tour as well, is find anything to nitpick on. And it's like, just, I mean, like, you're just being a dick. No reason.
Because, like, I knew everything was going to go awesome.
Yeah.
And I was just, like, kind of laughing, but not, I kept it inside.
Well, and it wasn't the band that was complaining about anything.
No,
it
not
was
at all.
Dicko tour manager.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, like, they had the head of sound, who's, like, one of my best friends there, on duty to keep the amps open as much as possible without blowing them. So like this show can be as loud as possible. I knew all this was happening. I told them it was happening.
I hope it made money.
And so it did. So anyways, so they went on, and I got like, then I was like, hey, how do I operate this smoke machine? And the guy was like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you're the one that asked for it. Like, I don't know how. And it was like, all right. So we looked up online, found the manual. and we okay, so here's the money shot. It was the loudest show I've ever attended. I mean, fuck that Bermuse thing. This was like just fucking loud and foggy as fuck. I found the tour manager. I'm like, Pete, how foggy do you want it? He's like, foggy as fuck. I'm like, no problem. I mean, I could not see 3 feet in front of me. I mean, people were like walking to the lobby and passing out. It was that loud and that like disoriented.
Sounds like a total success story. No wonder you keep booking shows. I mean, Matt, no wonder you keep booking shows.
Yeah, right. Because that's what you want from that show. It's like, I know. And like that was the only venue that ever let me do this. There was no other place that would ever, like their booking agent was like threatening me like with stuff. I'm like, pick it somewhere else, man. It's like, yeah, I did make money.
You gotta know who's on your side. I mean, why pick someone who's not the enemy and just dad them out? It's just such bullshit.
It was so fucking awesome, so disorienting, and so good. It was just like, fuck yeah. And again, Greg and Steven are such nice guys, and also like Attila. I love him too. And like I had
a bottle. In the end, it was a good time.
I had a bottle of tequila waiting for me and Attila afterwards, and it came back after because I know he likes tequila because I've done shows for him before, and it's like, and he was like, let's do some shots. I'm like, all right. And then Pete, the tour manager, was like, hey, can I have some of that tequila?
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, they have to
Oh,
hug
you're
me.
nice. You're nice.
I was like, but
You
hug
were-
me.
Oh, you made him hug you. Nice.
I did. And I was like, then here you go. And happily cheers him, you know.
All right, so you figured it out. A happy ending. You know that you had a
Yes,
happy
exactly.
And in the end, of course, the band was happy.
Oh, of course they were. I mean, they were so happy. I mean, like Greg and Steven.
They're very nice guys. They're very
They're
nice.
very nice guys. They were not worried at all. No one in the band was worried that show was not going to go well. And it was like, you know, it was one of those things. It was like, I mean, it was like, I think like 800 people there, something like that.
Well, and then it did fucking great.
Yeah, they made money.
800 people, only 8 passing out, a couple walking into walls, nobody pissing on their shoes.
Exactly.
No
well, I don't know about that. There might be some shoe pissing.
What's a story about you sneaking into Canada, or do you not want that?
Okay. So when I was in Fuckface, we went on tour with Hickey, and so we had 2 vans. And okay, so our guitarist John in Fuckface got denied at the border, as well as drummer from Hickey, Aesop. Aesop had terrorism charges against him, and he spray painted a cop car.
What?
Spray painted a cop car? That's a terrorist act.
Yeah, that's a terrorist charge. John had inciting a riot in Utah that was supposed to be dropped. Because we played a show in Utah.
Well, if you have either of those, they're going to deny you in Canada for sure.
So yeah, they're like, you can't get in. They're like, okay. So we had to regroup, take both vans back. We're like, okay, how do we do this? And we're like, okay, the van. We'll put one van with a few people that are legal, with all the merch, and they can cross into Canada. They can say, hey, this is a band that's going to tour Canada later on in the year, where we're giving away free merch to people. And so they got in. This is like 1995, I want to say 96. So again, no cell phones, no fucking emails. The only point of contact we could do between all people was I had a voicemail number, like 201540, and so I would keep changing the message, outgoing message, like updating people. And so we're like, okay, the gear. We'll try to first, okay, the 2 illegal people, we're going to put on a Greyhound with our girlfriend. So they'll go on the Greyhound, and hopefully at border, nothing will happen. Well, as it turns out, the drummer from Hickey lost his ID, kind of, and got back on the bus. And then our guitarist's girlfriend got back on the bus. Our guitarist were like, they looked at his ID, and they were like, you tried to get in yesterday and you're trying to get in today. If you try again tomorrow, you're going to get arrested and be put in jail. And so he's like, well, what do I do now? I'm like, I don't know. Walk down the highway, figure it out. And so he walked down the highway. Meanwhile, I was told right before we left for this tour that you need to find some like bikers, like Hells Angels guys, and ask them how to cross. Like,
whoa.
And so we're gassing up, and I saw some bikers. And again, I look fucking weird. And but I was like, hey, bikers, we're trying to get into Canada. Do you have any advice for us? And they're like, yeah, actually, see that road over there? Just keep driving, and you'll see farms with corn stalks and stuff. Anytime you see a turnoff, try it. At some point you'll find a ditch, and then you can cross over that ditch. And so we're like, okay. That's great advice. So we were checking the voicemail at a gas station going, okay, here's our next plan. Who made it into Canada so far? Did the first van make it? And with a message going, okay, first van, change the message. First van made it. They're at the venue. We're still looking for Aesop and Patsy and John. Have no idea. And we're going to attempt to get in. As I'm making that message, John comes walking down the highway. The gas station we're at, which is fucking insane.
I forgot to line up. Yeah,
we just told the story. We just recorded the story over the weekend. The 3 of us were in town together for the first time in years, and I was like, "Did this really happen?" Yeah, it really happened. So I was like, "What were you doing?" He's like, well, they told me to get the fuck out of the Greyhound station and walk down the highway, And like, well, what are you doing? Like, well, looking for a payphone. And I happened to be at the payphone he was looking for. And we were like, well, get in the van. And this is what we're doing. And he's like, Like, what do you mean? Like, he handed him a beer. Here's a Meisterbrow. We're going to try to cross the ditch. And he was like, I told him I'm not allowed to go into Canada. I'm like, well, people tell you all kinds of things. You don't have to listen. And so gave him a second beer. And we're like, we're doing this. Like, I booked a month-long tour of Canada. And so I'm not going to, I'm going to try, goddammit. So we found a ditch. And we found a 2x4, like a big board that was across the ditch. And we looked at that. We're like, will that hold the van? And it did.
Oh, you drove? Wow.
Yeah.
Better than ice road truckers. That's
wow.
right. Ditch truckers going into Canada. Yeah.
So I mean,
little ditch truckers.
How the fuck did you get back into the States?
Well, okay. I mean, that happened like a month later. But yeah, because we got to Canada like literally was kilometer signs on the other side of the highway. So we're like, okay, we're in Canada, and we went to the show. Yeah, it was like on that really seedy part of Vancouver. So yeah, a month later, we crossed back into Maine. They searched our van, and like we were pretty good about not traveling with drugs back in those days. It was like, don't have any drugs on you at all, ever. And yeah, so we crossed into Maine, and they're like, they asked us, how the fuck did you guys get in? We were like,
That was it.
Know. You played dumb. That's funny.
It's like, what are they going to do? Not let you back into the state?
Yeah, get out. Don't come back. Well, let's hope the shenanigans that you're about to encounter in Leipzig will go a lot smoother than that. And you won't have to cross a ditch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And good luck with all that. I'm sure it's going to be a great new chapter in your life. And thank you so much, Matt Shapiro, musician, promoter, booking agent, soon to be God knows what in Leipzig, Germany, 2 weeks. Pack those bags, and I'll see you as soon as you get me a show there. Thank you very much.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Lydia, Simon, Jim, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. And hopefully I'll see you in Leipzig on the 25th. I'll give you the info.